So the in situ finishing is another mystery of the construction, because you have to imagine it's very limited room to work in here. You're going to be generating tons of stone dust with zero circulation. The lighting in here, okay? So if we turned off all the lights in here, it would be pitch black. So you also don't want to work in a contained environment with a bunch of torches and stuff, burning up all the oxygen and creating carbon monoxide, because then you get carbon monoxide poisoning because there's fire burning inside of these things. So how do they light these things during the finishing process? How many teams of people could you possibly get working inside of this little area here to finish these? Okay, so the scoops, you see those scoops all over the top of the lid? So this is where they were removing cracks from the lid that could have jeopardized the integrity of the final product.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to the land of Chem. I'm your host and the author. My name is Jeffrey Drum. Thank you all so much for joining me again. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Sunday Site Visit 27, and today you will have the opportunity to experience full access to the sites in Saqqara during day one of the Land of Chem 2023 Ancient Alchemy and Ascension Tour, where we explored everything from the Valley Temple to the Serapeum. The tour itinerary included the pyramids and temples of Saqqara, the red and bent pyramids of Dashur, including the satellite hydraulic press mechanism, special permission access to the Sun Temple at Abu Ghurab, and the 3 pyramids of Abu Sir, 2 spectacular days on the Giza Plateau, a trip to the museum, and the night market Souk Khan El Khalili. And the exceptional footage from these expeditions will be released here on the channel over the next few weeks. So if this is the type of content you're interested in regarding the function of the Egyptian pyramids, please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube. Click that little notification bell so that you do not miss the new episodes that premiere twice per week. Like, comment, and stay tuned. If you want to help support the channel, check out the Land of Chem members-only channel for exclusive research-related content and unreleased footage that you will not see anywhere else. If you want to grab a copy of the book or pick up some merch, check out thelandofchem.com. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @thelandofchem. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it for today's intro. So without further ado, let's get right to it. All right, everyone, here we go with tonight's episode. Day one of the tour started off with a bang, covering all of the pyramids and temples surrounding the Step Pyramid in Saqqara. And here is a map to give you some orientation as we explored the sites, with the modern road highlighted here in purple. The first site we visited was the Valley Temple and the ancient harbor near the entrance to the Saqqara archaeological site down here at the bottom left. We were then invited by the lead archaeology team to investigate an ongoing excavation of a massive ancient mummification temple located here. This area, which you can only see about half of it in this picture, covers about the size of 2 football fields and was originally enclosed in a ceiling supported by pillars spanning the length of the entire facility. And I'll put in some clips now so you can join along on this adventure, my first opportunity to access this area, and a very cool experience to see real archaeological excavations up close in person. Standing in what was an ancient structure. So there would have been wooden beams in these post holes going across this entire complex. So this was a huge temple that the archaeologists are saying is related to mummification.
Yeah, basically, a mummification factory. And a very, very good phrase to use as one of the chemicals that is utilized in the mummification place is formaldehyde, which we'll be talking about formaldehyde here in just a little bit when we get to it.
I've actually never been in here, so let's go check it out.
This is a mortuary, isn't it?
So it was more, like you said, kind of a factory. For
Preparing the bodies for قول له محمد هندي قول له سلك قول له بيطلع
So this is my first time in this particular area. I did not realize that this was open to the public.
Yeah, it's soon, just soon.
Absolutely, of course.
And have a lovely life period.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Shout out to Asian Odyssey. لا ده هم مع نفسهم بقى انا كنت بساعدهم بالطريقه.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So this is the first picture that you guys may have seen of the Chem pillar, which, according to dynastic Egyptian iconography, is the backbone and pillar of Osiris, represents stabilization. It's an absolutely beautiful depiction. Again, this is my first time in this little area. And I don't know if you guys saw over here, look at the bone fragments and stuff. So we're literally, it is very cool to get a chance to be inside of an archaeological site.
Okay, here is das Hutkin.
Yeah.
With her two horns over this.
And so you can see here, this is of course of particular interest to me. Yeah, I know. So look down here, guys.
Pose first.
Look at that.
Seriously.
So again, it's an indication that what you see above ground, these things.
I'm from California.
It's kind of, it's only half of the total picture. It's what we see above ground. There's some German on check that out too. All right, so another thing while we're in here. So all of this blue paint that you can see.
You still remember German?
Yeah, officially yet, but I'm living in California.
Wie lange?
Oh, since the five years.
Vijf jaar.
Chicas.
Yeah.
Chicken.
Meine,
You're taking a picture with her.
meine Frau, meine Kinder, so ne? Deutsch. Ja, gleich mit mir 15 Jahren.
Industrial scale, and they're using this in modern day. So Egyptian blue emits almost as
I know you speak 16 times.
absorbs, which is a remarkable transmission rate, but then it emits infrared light. They also use this to
You will see
synthesize
something you never see.
anode materials. They're printing Egyptian blue. They're manufacturing Egyptian blue now and using it for anode material for lithium-ion batteries. So this paint has very, very interesting light-related properties. And for those of you guys that haven't, so we're looking at just at the Egyptian blue. It's kind of the first usages that we'll see of this. So Egyptian blue is one of the primary examples of the production of chemicals and products on an industrial scale.
Do you know the chemical name?
It's calcium copper silicate. So calcium copper silicate. And they still don't understand the exact manufacturing process by which this was produced. And one of the unusual things about Egyptian blue is the consistency of the product found across the ancient world. So the chemical makeup is always the same. And after thousands of years, it has not experienced any chemical degradation, which is an indication of a very sophisticated industrial manufacturing process to produce this paint. And you have to imagine, you can't just make a small handful of paint and be like, okay, we're gonna use this small handful here and paint this. You know, you're producing it on an industrial scale where there's hundreds, maybe even thousands and thousands of gallons being produced at a time. How are they manufacturing this stuff? It requires very stable temperature and pressure to synthesize the compound in like a kiln. So again, we're talking about industrial scale chemistry that is even evident within the dynastic civilization, just to paint. Not to mention all the other things that we'll be talking about once we get to the actual pyramid. So it's very cool stuff, and this is a functional material. I have not, no, this is all, I have no idea.
Interesting staining.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Okay.
Introduction to the false door stela. For the way the dynastic Egyptians represented the portal into the afterlife. The Ka. Yeah, to another dimension, the afterlife. So this is very cool. And you will see, even like when we go inside the Red Pyramid, for example, you'll see these archaeological marker tags where they're monitoring shifts inside of the structure. They're looking at the cracks to see how much the bedrock is settling and moving. Inside the Red Pyramid, you'll see these little archaeological marker tags. And that's essentially what they're doing here, is measuring the fluctuation, and see this crack right here? So they're looking at how that crack moves over time.
Oh, wow. That's a portal.
You want to go to the other side?
The other side.
Where are the white bricks coming from? That filled this
Yeah, so this actually may be natural deposits in the bedrock. So small veins of material that are in the limestone bedrock itself. And it certainly looks like this has been, you know, painted or coated with a material. It looks very reminiscent. You almost see it's kind of shiny. It looks like iron oxide. Yeah, no, I wouldn't go down there. Oh, no, the door's closed. But yeah, so again, like I was saying, in the one that we just previously went in, what is above ground is only half of the picture. There's so much subterranean work in all of these things. It's really quite mind-blowing. Cool. Come check this out. Oh, shit. So, literally like a scene out of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Look what they're doing here. They're raising something out of the pit. With that little...
Here you discovered the new shafts, late periods, and discovered the many wooden boxes, sarcophagus, and you discovered the mummification animals. This workshop and the workshop of mummification human. And now you discovered the tomb of Niba Husu, the tomb of mud brick, and now we're cleaning the shaft.
So this is a spectacular example of ongoing archaeology. So they're literally pulling something out from one of those shafts right here. You can see here in the corner, this white limestone is another depiction of a false door stela over here in the corner.
دي ورشة تحنيط المومياوات الحيوانية، وهنا المومياوات الآدمية، هنا التحنيط الآدمي.
Right now, they're literally digging stuff up, moving out the dirt and debris, they're passing it up in those little baskets. But this is literally what you see in Indiana Jones, where they're like digging out the shafts and cannons and stuff. We're literally standing on top of a huge wall that's part of this massive ancient mud brick mummification structure here. And all of these are rock cuts. So it's just absolutely spectacular to see ongoing excavation. We're using pretty rudimentary tools to haul that stuff on out of there. It doesn't require, massive, modern machinery to do this kind of process. It's literally a very simple pulley, rope and pulley. Okay, so now, directly in front of us, this is the Pyramid of Userkaf, which, if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend checking out our special permission access visit inside of this pyramid. It's currently closed to the public, but there is some very unusual features about the inside. The sarcophagus is made of a blue stone material. There's conduits all along the outside. It's an absolutely gorgeous structure. So Userkaf is here, Step Pyramid of Djoser here, the Pyramid of Wanis is over here. This mound is the Pyramid of Teti the First, which we'll also have an opportunity to access. And then further in the distance, the dual mastaba of Ptah Hotep and the Serapeum is further in the distance.
This is discovered.
It's absolutely fascinating that they're still pulling stuff out of the ground here in Egypt. This could go on forever. I mean, the archaeology here is still so alive. Very cool.
We then continued deeper into the site and walked from the modern parking lot area here up the causeway to investigate the Pyramid of Wanis and the Eastern Temple. And here's a picture of us discussing a huge block of white calcite crystal that was moved out of its original place within the conduit system running underneath the paving stones of the Eastern Temple. And you can see the channel here running through the block of crystal and some very unusual staining covering the stone. So now, here is some footage from the causeway where I explain the quote-unquote floating stones of Egypt and the chemistry of Egyptian blue, and some video from our journey inside the Pyramid of Wanis. I hope you enjoy.
So here, again, you can kind of see the differences between the restoration, modern restoration, and ancient pieces of stone that are still here in this area. And here on the left are the depictions of the dynastic Egyptian boats that are moving these big pieces of stone. So you can see here, this column with the floral top, and the hieroglyphs, not at this one, but at the top of this one, you can see these hieroglyphs here. This is describing the movement of an order of stone from Elephantine Island. So they have these huge columns loaded onto these ships, big massive pieces of stone being floated on wooden ships. I've presented this many times on my channel. People will argue all day that you can't move stone on floated wood, which you absolutely can. It's all about knowledge of buoyancy and water displacement. And if you look at our modern shipping containers and these huge ships that have these massive, massive loads, they still float because, again, we have knowledge of water displacement. And that's why boats are shaped the way that they are, because of physics, right? So the knowledge of physics, even just in the transportation of stone, is something that this ancient civilization absolutely knew about. So they could not only cut the stone from the quarry, they could load it onto the ship, and then they could unload it at the tail end, because it's being depicted in the movement process here. So they had to know how to get it on there and get it off of there and float it all the way to the site. And as I've proposed in my episode, Building the Great Pyramid with Water, there's a lot of evidence that they utilized the flooding of the Nile River and channels to move these wooden floated stones directly to the building site to facilitate the process. They aren't going to drag these things across the land the whole way up there. You're going to float them in ships directly to the site. You transport them on water in canals directly to the building location. And they most likely used water in the laying process as well to kind of float the stones in place. That's why I call them floating stones. They're not being magnetically or gravitationally levitated, but it's actually like floating it on water, just knowledge of physics and buoyancy. So this is a very cool depiction. And you can see here, we'll see more in the Pyramid of Unis, the stars on the top of the ceiling. And this is more evidence here of Egyptian blue. We saw it in that burial site, but you guys, I'm sure, have seen my videos on Egyptian blue, the first synthetic chemical that was ever produced. Calcium copper silicate. And this was a chemical that was being manufactured on an industrial scale by the dynastic Egyptians. We still don't understand the exact manufacturing process, but they have done chemical composition analysis of this material, and it has prevented degradation over thousands and thousands and thousands of years. The chemical quality of the paint is still as good as it was in the original day. So this is an example of dynastic Egyptian chemistry and alchemy. They had to be producing this in a very consistent temperature and pressure environment, kilns to make this stuff. And you can't, again, as I was saying in the tomb, you don't just make one batch in your hand, paint it on the wall and call it a day, right? So it's an industrial manufacturing process. So even the pigment manufacturing industry, making paint, was a huge dynastic industry. They have all sorts of industries, and this is well documented even in the conventional historical archaeological record that they had all sorts of industries in ancient Egypt, producing paint, making food, baking breads, all of this sort of thing, right? You have to provide for the entire civilization. So there's kind of a misconception about the primitive nature of ancient Egypt. It's a very sophisticated society that knew about chemistry, and even in the modern days, they're testing the chemical composition of this material. Again, I've shown on my channel that it's an infrared material that emits almost 90% as many photons as it absorbs. It emits infrared light. It's basically a phosphorescent material. And they're currently 3D printing Egyptian blue in sheets for lithium ion batteries as a cathode or anode material. So they're finding very unique properties about this simple paint, and it's an incredibly complex molecule. Calcium copper silicate has an intricate molecular lattice, and I've shown pictures of what the molecule actually looks like. So they would lead you to believe that this was sort of accidentally discovered and they don't know exactly, they knew exactly what they were doing. And it was a very sophisticated manufacturing process. And none of this stuff was done by accident.
Yeah, rock dust, right?
Right, yeah. But no, again, we still don't know exactly how it was manufactured because it does require such a consistent production. And so they've taken samples of Egyptian blue from all around the Mediterranean, and the chemical composition of the Egyptian blue is extremely consistent. Right, so they weren't just making it accidentally in some little pot and everybody was making it differently. They had a very standardized manufacturing process just to be able to make the blue paint. And that's literally just scratching the surface because it's painted on the surface of what this civilization was really capable of. So I love the Egyptian blue. It's amazing the properties of this stuff. So I'll show you guys basically what the arts were just displaying. So inside of this chamber, the back third of this chamber is completely constructed of white calcite crystal. And what he's showing here is the difference between the limestone in this portion and the calcite crystal. And he was showing the figure, the sort of shadow figure. Yeah, so you kind of got to look at when you turn the lights on. There's a shadow figure that appears when you shine the light on this side. But something also to look at, it's not just, so the floor here, underneath the container, is also calcite crystal. And for any of you, so if you look back here, you'll notice that the hieroglyphs do not continue all the way around the back. And material known as black gray web.
Black, gray,
Gray web.
wet, gray, wet.
So a lot of people think this is black basalt. They've done chemical analysis and it's black gray web. Yeah, absolutely.
Do some people pronounce that differently? Do they call it like Rowecki or whatever?
Rowecki, yeah, same material.
That's not as bad as
Yeah.
Where are you from? That's very geologically significant.
So again, the whole entire back portion of this chamber are massive slabs of crystal. No, it's okay, it's okay.
Has this been refinished?
Incredibly smooth. Yeah, oh yeah.
This is the stuff that goes here.
The finish of this is absolutely spectacular. And just look at the fine finish on it. So it's the polish. The polish. And you'll notice that the inside of the container is not as finished as the exterior, which is something very different to what we're going to see inside the Serapeum, where the inside of the containers are finished and the outside of the container is not. And so, having been in there, right, you see how this is similar to what we found inside Userkov? The quality of the material, but it's a different color. So the stone container inside the pyramid of Userkov is blue. It's the same material, but it's a blue stone. And it's absolutely spectacular. But one thing I'll point out, just look at it.
We have to go out.
And subject to your own interpretation.
Okay.
You know.
We're just going to be inside the
Look at the drawing here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So cool.
But just remember this, right? Okay, so remember this.
Yeah.
And I'll discuss a little bit about this when we get outside. So just look at, you guys see this here? Just remember this, and we'll talk about that when we get outside.
So cool.
Okay, so again, just for your own comparison purposes, right? Look at this, and look at this. And compare the difference. Compare the difference of this and this. And so all of this material here underneath the container is all crystalline calcite. Same thing on this wall of the chamber here. This entire portion. No, joint. And the biggest difference that I'll point out here, compared to the Pyramid of Teti that we'll see in just a moment, is that the ceiling does not meet the edges of the walls. And that is for a very intentional purpose.
Next, we proceeded to investigate the temple adjacent to the Pyramid of Winis, here, the underground labyrinth of Hotep Shamui, and the huge pits housing the quote-unquote burials of the Persian kings located on the eastern side of the Pyramid of Winis, over here to the left side of the step pyramid of Saqqara. And an exceptional shot of me pointing out the red and bent pyramids of Dashur in the distance to the south. I hope you enjoy the footage.
And this is leading into a huge underground passage and labyrinth system that runs beneath this entire structure. And this is the configuration of the Persian shaft tombs, which we will see. Does anybody want water? Does anybody need a fresh bottle of water? Okay. Thank you. Maya. That there was a mechanism that was housed in here that locked down into this portion of this piece of granite. So a very unusual feature. This area of the structure is known as the offering hall. This portion of the Eastern Temple.
The offering.
And then over here, one of my favorite features of this site.
Hey Jeff, please stay together.
Yes, I'll wait till everybody gets over here.
Yeah. He's coming right now. You want the full power of Seaboard?
Oh yeah. So here is the beginning of this white calcite crystal conduit system. And if you follow this thing directly over in this direction, it leads into another one of those pits that we were just discussing. And you can see this piece of the conduit here leads directly, so see that granite block there in the center? Directly to the right of that granite block, you'll see another piece of the conduit moving in that same direction. And if you just come over here and touch this part, again, the finishing on this portion of the stone here, Owen.
Oh yeah, that's like the case we were just.
So remember that this part was underneath the temple floor. This is the temple floor here, limestone blocks. And they had this white calcite crystal conduit that was exquisitely carved, running underneath the floor of the temple. And so the conventional explanation is this stuff is for water drainage. So why go through all the extra effort of bringing in the white calcite crystal and carving it to such an exceptional level if this is just a water channel that is never going to be seen? This entire part is hidden. And just, I always like to rub my hand on that piece of calcite. And I found another block of it over here as we walk toward the step pyramid. Here on the right, this is one of the Persian shaft tombs. And we can walk around here to the front side so you can look down inside of this thing. It is incredibly impressive. Again, this is and so the entrance that we are going to use to access the step pyramid was supposedly excavated by the Persians, as were the construction of these tombs. And if you look down into this thing, you can see the lid of an absolutely massive container down inside of there, a sarcophagus for the Persian king.
Oh shit. That's a long way down.
Yep. And if you just look here, the difference of what I was just discussing about those other pits, you can clearly see the chisel marks and the tool marks that have gone through to excavate this thing. And then the post holes were most likely used in the lowering process. When they were lowering this container and the lid down in there, they had a wooden scaffolding system to drop that container down into the bottom of that pit. Alright, so guys, here's the perfect place. So looking to the south, what do you guys see?
Far away.
That is the red and bent pyramids of Dashur. And if you look here, you see that sign in front of that mound of dirt right here, adjacent to the temple? That is the satellite pyramid of the Pyramid of Wanis. So there was actually another pyramid right where that mound is. And you see there in the distance, the one in the front on the right is the red pyramid. The one directly behind it is the quote-unquote bent pyramid. And we'll be climbing inside of those tomorrow morning.
Is the peak still sensitive?
We then proceeded to explore the step pyramid complex located in the center of the Saqqara archaeological site here. And now some clips from my discussion explaining the function of the southern tomb, the Latvian mission scanning that discovered the connecting shaft leading from the step pyramid into the southern tomb, and the construction of the step pyramid itself.
With Ragab is I was sharing with him the LiDAR scans that were done in 2017 by the Latvian scientific mission to Saqqara, where they had GPR radar come out here and they scanned this entire area and they found a bunch of subterranean shafts here in Saqqara. And Ragab knows that they're aware of these things and they're currently in the excavation process to try to find some of the shafts that are here in Saqqara. And there's one that leads from the main chamber in this direction toward the southern chamber. And down inside of this chamber is another red granite sarcophagus with a plug in it. And you guys have seen pictures of that probably on my channel before. I recently put out an episode and there is evidence of green copper oxide that was discovered on the inside of this red granite container. So imagine this thing was lined with copper on the inside of the container, then encased in red granite slabs, and then plugged from the top. Very unusual configuration. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, bioreactor.
And here, of course, the step pyramid of Djoser, and then we'll walk out this way through the technical entrance of the step pyramid complex. 40 acres. 40 acres. This entire complex is 40 acres. And as Gina was explaining, originally this was not a pyramid. The step pyramid of Djoser is literally the genesis of pyramid building in Egypt. It was originally a large rectangular shaft excavated into the bedrock that was capped with a single level platform that's known as a mastaba. That mastaba was later enlarged in 3 stages of reconstruction, where they came and they built a smaller pyramid, and then they built another larger pyramid on top of it, which inevitably led to this 6-level structure that we now know as the step pyramid. And underneath this structure, there are miles of subterranean tunnels where they discovered all of those incredibly precise artifacts that predate the reign of Djoser. These are Old Kingdom artifacts that display incredible level of construction and precision, different types of materials that we don't see in the later kingdoms of dynastic Egypt. Very, very special stuff that was accumulated here in the tunnels that were beneath this structure. So it's a very, very unusual spot.
Our next stop was the Pyramid of Teti I, located here, to perform a comparative analysis between this structure and the Pyramid of Winis.
Excuse me.
All right. Left your head. Left your head. Okay. Left your head.
No, it's not bad. Debbie in the fire. There you go. Oh, it's short one.
All right, is that everybody? Let's go. Okay. So, you'll notice the exact same location at the bottom of the northern shaft, the patch here. As we go into the primary chamber, look at this piece of stone here. And
Just a couple more. Yeah.
trying to find if there is an origination, because it seems very unlikely that they would have put this unfinished piece of stone into place here in this construction. So every time I come in here, I try to see if there's an origination point to this ripple and what the hell could have caused this. Because everything else in here is finished and dressed stone. But you can see that circular hole right there. Very, very unusual. And again, that same patch right there at the bottom of the northern pump shaft. So inside the red pyramid, there is a shaft or a pit in this exact same location. And the fluid dynamics experiments that we've done inside the red pyramid indicate that that could have been the location of the fill shaft for the structure. So where water was being introduced into the chambers through a shaft in that location that is patched right there. All right, so this here is a fragment of the red granite that was removed from the portcullis system that we will walk through here in just a moment. So that certainly appears to be some patchwork through here. So this is black basalt. So this is one of the differences about the configuration of this structure is the integration of black basalt. And so in my opinion, and the research has shown that black basalt is a thermoregulatory and thermo-insulating material. So I'll keep moving because there's people coming in. But so anytime you see black basalt, think heat retention properties. Anytime you see red granite, think ultrasound. Anytime you see limestone, be thinking dielectric properties. And so here, red granite, and then another slab of black basalt, which is a different configuration. So here, another difference between this structure and the pyramid of Wenise that we just saw is this feature here. So this is all red granite. This piece here, this is black basalt. So this is modern restoration. Everything is covered up, whatever is here. Certainly, right? So that's certainly subject to interpretation, but all of this is not ancient. This is all modern restoration. Was there a pit there? Was there something actually here that's now been destroyed? That's one of those things that we may never know. All right, so now let's go this way. Yeah. Very similar to the configuration that we just saw in the Pyramid of Wenise. And you can see here on the ceiling, so specifically right here, you see the outline of where, I'm not trying to blast you in the face there. On the ceiling, you can see that square outline where these partitions originally went all the way to the ceiling. So you can see here, if you follow it up, there's this line here, and then it goes over, and back down where the partition originally went all the way to the ceiling. You can also see remnants here. See this piece right here? This is plaster, that red plaster material.
What would they go for that?
for that trouble though, to allow you in, but then destroy that, sort of damage the acoustic properties?
I mean, you can still.
So yeah, you can definitely still hear it inside of this chamber. Shaft is not in the exact same location. You can see that there was a lip here and something that may have been housed in this area. Almost impossible to say what it could have been. But you can see that there's mortar in here. This is mortar, this material. So whatever was in there was mortared into place, and then somebody came and chiseled it out of here.
Flat.
So something interesting.
Yeah, a valve.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah. Most likely a piece of metal.
Yeah.
So there's some very small differences, but very significant differences. And so now that we have a chance to talk about it, so in the Pyramid of Winis, the reason that the ceiling does not meet the edges of those chambers is because that is somewhat of a distillation apparatus. So let's imagine, so anytime you see black, right, remember to think heat, whether it's black basalt or black grey-wick. In that primary chamber, you have a large rectangular black container. If you get that thing hot, it is going to stay hot. So we're talking about electromagnetic energy transmission into the structure. Heating that black container. If you fill it with a solution, the black container is then going to heat the solution, causing evaporation out of the solution, which then condenses on the roof of the structure, flowing down into the channels. So I had a chance to stand up on the edge of that black container and look into that vacant area, and there's channels behind there. So the condensation of that distillate is dripping off the top of the chamber, collecting in the groove. Saw in the Pyramid of Winis, the patch in the exact same place in the floor.
And now they've built a platform here too.
Now there's a platform underneath here. But I find it very unusual, to say the least, that there are square patches in the exact same place in each one of these pyramids if there was not something in this place originally, right? Because they would say that the patchwork is to repair damage to the original floor. But there wouldn't be the exact same type of damage in the exact same place in every single structure. There's one of these square patches. So is there a shaft underneath here? What was that again? It's one of those things that's still for speculative interpretation.
Yeah, whether a shaft is coming in or something was housed there.
Correct.
Bedded down.
Correct. So there's a reason that they patch these in. It's in both of the structures. And I don't think it's because of, damage to the floor or restoration or anything of that nature. Because if it was restoration, it would be something that's not so consistent in every single one of the structures. The hole at the bottom of the northern pump shaft. This square patch in a structure that has a very similar, and so again, if the first one didn't make it, I need to look at this one. Right above the head. Yeah. And you can see right behind you that you're leaning up against that incredibly sturdy piece of wood that's holding the entire thing up.
So there are hieroglyphs next to this.
Correct. Yeah. So on the inside. So on the inside of this, and what I was also pointing out inside the Pyramid of Winis, remember when I was saying look at the hieroglyphs?
Yeah.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah.
The quality of those hieroglyphs are so dissimilar to the quality of the masonry of the container itself and the quality of the masonry of the calcite crystal. Right? So imagine the processing of that calcite crystal wall, and then you come back and you scrawl these hieroglyphs onto the surface. It barely scratching the surface of the calcite crystal. It is in no way whatsoever reminiscent of the same period of design and execution.
Right.
If you look at the polish on that surface, the people would be absolutely furious that it was placed next to something where the designs were just barely scratched into the surface of that calcite crystal. So that's what I was trying to get to in the Pyramid of Winis when I was saying look at the hieroglyphs and look at the difference of what we have here. It's a very significant difference. Same thing here. If you look at these hieroglyphs on the inside of this container, this to me is not reminiscent of the same quality of the construction of the container itself. There is no way you can tell me that came from the same time period. Correct. Look at how crude those are. Now, if you look at the grooves right next to them, so those grooves are housing for something.
Yeah.
So there was something inside of this container that was housed in those grooves.
And last but not least, I took the group to explore the Serapeum. And here is some footage of me explaining these smooth scoop marks that are found on the exterior of some of these massive containers housed within this underground system. Yalabina.
So this is the lid of this container.
It looks like they start to push and push and push and then they stop. They cannot continue.
Which has been completely abandoned in the middle of the hallway here.
Like each sarcophagus of these needs around 400 persons to pull the sarcophagus inside. But imagine if this place takes 400.
So that's what I was saying, that a civil and civil engineers and what was the other type of engineer?
Structural.
Maybe it was a structural design engineer came in here and they were trying to figure out how these things were moved. The number of people that would have been required to move these things. If they had 400 people in here, where are the 400 people going to go?
Yeah.
So there are certainly some limitations. Also on the side of this thing, you don't have very much clearance on the side of this thing to move it around the corners. And when we see the in situ containers, there's very limited space to kind of move these things around corners. So that's one of the big unanswered mysteries about the Serapeum is, how did they get these things in here? So it's not just moving them around in here. You have to move it down into this shaft system. You have to move it through the corridors. And you have to move it into place. The entire thing was filled with water.
The acoustics thing makes sense. We need to set against each other. It's not directly opposed.
Right. So we also took a compass in here, and all of these things are aligned east to west to a very, very high level of, we can go back out to the one in front, and if you have a compass on your phone, put it up against the edge, and it's almost perfectly aligned in the housing. So again, some very unusual scoops inside of these containers. Here's another one that looks like a piece of Swiss cheese on the top, and it's very odd to me that that the scoops would be finished to this high level of precision. So now talking about acidic compounds and things of that nature, if you were to pour some acid onto one of these things and then neutralize it with a basic solution, turn that acid back into water that stopped the reaction, that's exactly what type of divot it would produce, because it's going to dissolve away the material, it's going to stop the reaction with the base, neutralize the solution, and it's going to leave a completely clear divot like that. So I think that is a more likely explanation for what was causing these things. The reasoning behind it may have still been the same, from cracks inside of the lid, so they wanted to get rid of the cracks, so they just poured some acid onto it, let it dissolve away the area with the crack, neutralize the acid, neutralizing solution, you wipe it out, remove all the material, and then that leaves those scoops.
Again, like you said, more fumes.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of the other anomalous things about the in situ finishing is, why would you finish these things in the dark, underground, in these housings?
All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. This was Sunday Site Visit 27, the Land of Chem 2023 Ancient Alchemy and Ascension Tour, Day 1, full access to the sites at Saqqara. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I literally have hundreds of hours of tour footage from this year's expedition. So if you like this one, let me know what you think in the comment section below. For the next episode in the series, I have a major surprise in store for episode 100. This is something you do not want to miss. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification bell. Just wait until you see the footage in next week's Sunday Site Visit 28. If you want to help support the channel, check out the Land of Chem members only section for exclusive research-related content and unreleased footage. This month, the full chemical analysis from the iron oxide deposits surrounding the trial passages and the unreleased footage from the Lost Pyramid in Dashur. If you want to pick up a copy of the book or grab some merch, check out thelandofchem.com. If you want to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @thelandofchem. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it for today's video. So I will see you next time. Yo, are you still watching this? Please subscribe to the Land of Chem here on YouTube and click that little notification button. New videos coming out every single week. And check out this other episode. Come on, do it. Do it now.